this.
All right, it's nice to see Isla with some familiar faces there. So go ahead and type in where you're from, your favorite weed from the garden. Dandelion. Isla was just telling us a little bit about dandelion. She was teaching about that the other day. We've got from Washington State, burdock. Anybody else want to type in your location? Seattle, and Deborah loves clover. Goosefoot from Wisconsin. Wendy, Oak Park, and she loves mullein. Massachusetts, we've got some nettle, some purslane. All right, everybody. Minnesota, loving some yarrow. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Welcome to Community Conversations, produced by Midwest Women's Herbal. Let's see, we've already typed into the chat your favorite weed. Test out some of the reaction buttons if you'd like by raising your hand, putting a little heart. We're delighted that you're with us tonight. Midwest Women's is a women-led and women-empowered organization that has been producing herbal and personal growth events in person and virtually for over 13 years. To find out more, visit our website, midwestwomensherbal.com or herbwomenclassroom.com.
Sherry,
Tonight,
did you introduce yourself?
oh, nope, that's next. It's coming right up.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I guess I should do that first. So, hi, everybody. I'm Sherry Ralish. I'm your hostess this evening. I'm excited to be here. And I'd like to welcome and introduce a few other conference coordinators, Alicia Gassaway and Karen White. They'll be handling tech support. So if you find yourself with any audio or visual glitches, please send either one of them a private chat or email them at herbwomen@gmail.com. So Midwest Women Herbal is a women-led and women-empowered organization, as I stated, and we've already put Midwest Women's Herbal and Herb Women Classroom in the chat there. Tonight's conversation is Weeds Heal, a working herbal with Isla Burgess and Linda Conroy. There are other members of our coordinating team tonight, and it takes a strong community of women to produce events like this and our conferences. So please give them a lot of love and gratitude. Thank you, ladies, for being part of the team. Just go ahead and give your hands a raise if you're part of the team. At this time, Alicia will read our mission and vision statements.
Thanks, Sherry. So our mission statement: Midwest Women's Herbal provides herbal education and opportunities for transformation. Immersed in the tradition of the village herbalist, grandmothers, mothers, daughters, sisters, and children gather in a co-created village. Through earth-centered healing and nourishment, we ally with the plants that grow around us. From the ground up, we connect to weave ourselves, our families, and our communities into the dynamic spiral of health. And our vision statement: we live in a world where the feminine is honored and respected, where women stand fully in their power, acknowledging their wisdom, skills, and innate healing abilities.
Thank you, Alicia. That's I love hearing those all the time. They're such beautiful statements. In the coming days, we will be sending you some emails with offers. We want to make sure you receive them. We know emails sometimes can go into your spam or promotions. So you can add Herb Women Gmail to your contacts, or after tonight's conversation, when you get our email, go ahead and hit the reply button and that'll let your server know that we're connected. Please keep questions and comments in the, and if somebody is not muted, would you please go ahead and do that? It's distracting. So please keep all questions and comments in the chat focused on tonight's topic. If you have questions about Midwest Women's Herbal or our work, please go ahead and put that to the email herbwomen@gmail.com. We'd like to thank our sponsors who make hosting events like this possible: Moonwise Herbs, Mountain Rose Herbs, Frontier Co-op, Host Defense Mushrooms, Good Land Creative, Red Earth Herb Gathering, Wisconsin Mycological Society, the Driftless Folk School, Wisconsin Public Radio, and Natural Awakenings Magazine. Sponsorship is open to everyone at any level and supports the many scholarships we award every year. Visit our website for sponsorship opportunities for In Our Own Hands, Women's Wellness Series, the Spring Herbal Conference, and Mycelium Mysteries, the Women's Mushroom Conference, which was held about a month ago. In addition to the events I just mentioned, Midwest Women's Herbal has a virtual learning space. The Herb Women Classroom has both free and paid offerings with hundreds of hours of learning available with mindfully curated modules like women's mysteries, mushrooms, herbs, nourishment, and personal growth. Every learning module comes with a monthly community Q&A with herbal educator Linda Conroy via Zoom. Complete conference recording packages are also available. Did you know each colored line and marking on the face, tongue, and nails holds a meaning to your internal health? Reading the Body with Margie Flint is a special event from November 8th through the 10th and will be held at Bethel Horizons Retreat Center in Dodgeville, Wisconsin. Margie will explain and demonstrate diagnostic techniques she learned from the late William Lasassier and observed with clients over her 40+ years in practice. Experienced and beginner herbalists will find great benefits from this 3-day immersion. The event's coming up in a few short weeks, and we have a couple of spots left. Check it out right away if this resonates with you, and please email us if you have any questions. All right. We're especially excited to announce registration is open for In Our Own Hands, a women's wellness series. Join us January through March 2025 for 6 engaging virtual women's wellness workshops led by Caitlin Isla Wolf, Isla Burgess, who's on the call tonight, Max Dashu, Gina Rivers, Sunny Savage, and Linda Conroy. Workshops for In Our Own Hands Women's Wellness Series are held via Zoom. They're 3 hours in length. They occur every other Saturday. You can take individual workshops or you can sign up for the whole series for the most benefit. Recordings will be sent following the conclusion of each workshop. We're excited about the diverse topics this year and stellar women presenting. Isla's talk is scheduled for February 1st. So check that out tonight after, and you can sign up for hers. At the end of tonight's conversation, we will give away 1 registration to the full series for In Our Own Hands and one of Isla's books, Weeds Heal, a Working Herbal. You do need to be present, so stay till the end. All right. At this time, I'm honored to introduce Linda Conroy, visionary and founder of Midwest Women's Herbal Conference, Mycelium Mysteries, Women's Mushroom Conference, In Our Own Hands, and the Herb Women Classroom. She's also the proprietress of Moonwise Herbs. Linda is a bioregional herbalist who's been practicing and teaching herbalism for over 30 years. Linda offers in-person and virtual herbal apprenticeships. I spent 3 years as Linda's apprentice and 1 year as an intern. It was life-changing for me, and I highly recommend looking into her apprenticeships or take any of her classes. I learned about Isla's work while apprenticing with Linda, and I'm really excited she agreed to join us tonight for this community conversation. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Shari, and thanks for helping to hold the container this evening. And welcome, everyone. I'm super excited to be here with you all and to see so many faces, and super delighted about this evening presentation or conversation, if you will. And I think as we're going through the evening, we're going to find we're going to be hopefully conversing with the plant chickweed tonight, which I'm super excited about. It's such a underappreciated plant in so many ways, and I think we'll gain a great appreciation for it. So first, I know some of you know Isla, and I'm sure some of you came tonight specifically to spend time with Isla, and some of you may not be familiar with her work. Isla is one of my teachers. She's been instrumental in helping me to stay focused on the plants and my relationship with the land, and really continue to deepen those relationships over and over again. I'm so grateful for that. And I want to read her bio, because sometimes when I just speak from my heart, I miss things that you might want to know about her that I think are really, really important. And so I'm going to read what Isla writes about herself from her website. She says, a little about my life. In 2008, I enrolled for a mind retreat studying for an MSc in holistic science at Schumacher College in Devon, England. I felt there was a deeper connection to be experienced with the plant planet world that had been my working life as an herbal medicine educator, as director of the International College of Herbal Medicine, and previously of the Wakata Center for Herbal Studies. I have also been herbal medicine practitioner for more than 30 years, which that is not correct. That's a lot longer than that. We need to update that. With a special interest in women's health. That master's introduced me to the less well-known scientific work of J.W. von Goth, and together with the teachers and colleagues, provided much stimulation for my book, The Biophilic Garden, Connecting People, Plants, and Inscape. It also changed how I worked since then, offering more participatory workshops, enabling participants to directly experience the crossover to the planet world. I have worked internationally as a teacher, conference presenter, workshop facilitator, inspiring others. And Isla has been to our Midwest Women's Herbal Conference many times and contributed immensely to our community's knowledge and relationship to plants. She lives near Wanaka, New Zealand. She's inspired by her life there in the Inscape. Life and this place is the trigger for her next book that she's envisioning, which is called Trees Heal. She's been a part of a documentary called Earth Whisperers. And her book and blogs and website, we'll give you links to those, but she is the author of 4 books. One, which some of the work we're going to do tonight is based on, Weeds Heal, a Working Herbal, which is one of my favorite, and I think a really important book to herbal knowledge and wisdom. The Biophilic Garden, Connecting People, Plants, and Inscape. A Women's Health and Wellbeing Kite, a Do-It-Yourself Guide, she wrote with Mary Allen. And a second volume of that book, Women's Health and Wellbeing Kite, with Mary Allen. And Isla does have a website and a blog that we will link you to in the chat, and also in a follow-up email that we will send to you. So Isla can tell you how many years she's been at this, because it's way more than 30. And I really appreciate her commitment and her longevity and her presence. And so I am going to invite Isla here into the conversation to get us started. Welcome, Isla.
Oh, kia ora, Linda. Thank you so much. It's a little bit shall we say, awe-inspiring listening to somebody read the liturgy of your life. So, to be clear, I gave my first workshop on plants at around 21, and I'm now 75. So there you go, do the maths.
I knew it was much longer.
Well, you know, forever young. It really takes a little bit of reflecting on, you know. I mean, that mind retreat was in 2008, and we're at 2024, and it just seems like yesterday. So that's a little bit of a worry. I do still offer, no, I'm going to say I continue to offer workshops here, and I run a 6-month, 1 weekend a month course called The Traditions, Art and Science of Herbal Medicine. And I've been doing that for at least a decade, probably more. And now I'm offering more like a it's a little bit like you move through the layers, and I think other older herbalists do this too. And so you start off, you know, with plants, especially those little ones like we're going to be looking at tonight, with Weeds Heal, and then you kind of, you know, now I'm moving into trees in a big time, in a big way, and especially on the relationship that they, as the key beings, have with us. and us as secondary to that relationship. It's a process called unselfing, where you get your ego out of it. And was there a question about that? No? Okay. And it's about not thinking about what that plant is going to do for us, but more about how, as one of my Tuhoi Tohanga teachers says, when I'm with a plant, it's not that the plant tells me things, like doesn't speak English. And I cringe actually when people say, oh, the plant told me. But more that when we spend time, the more we hang out with that plant, the better idea we have of what it's about. And so we can learn from and yes, they are the plant's teachings, but we are interpreting how that comes about and what that means by spending time. Now, in today's world, that is not the easiest thing because everyone's speeding up. But I picked up for the second time last week, I picked up this book by one of my tutors at Schumacher College, Craig Holdridge. He has a centre called the Nature Institute in the Northern Adirondacks. Is that how you say that? Yeah, Northern New York State. And I mean, he's not into plants as medicine, but he is into how we can think as that plant thinks, how we move into that space. And I think if I had actually read that, I probably would have changed a few things in Weeds Heal. Not so much the structure of what it is, but more that I would have added other layers to it. And that's what we do, right?
Would you repeat what you read that inspired you to think you would change some things?
Yeah, he does. A good question, Linda. Thank you. He does go through chapters like the plant as teacher of context, the plant as teacher of place. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that with reference to chickweed. It's not that it's mind-shatteringly changing. It's how we view chickweed. It's more about giving a little bit more focus to that. He talks about the plant as teacher of transformation. And as we're into spring at the moment, I think that is that transformation that is happening on a daily basis here is phenomenal. And, we think about transformation as the butterfly caterpillar going into the chrysalis, and, we can see that. But transformation is happening like before our eyes, where the plant in that tiny, tiny bud develops into that flower and then into the seed. I mean, when you think about that, it's pretty mind-blowing to think that before it all happened, that was in the seed, that tiny seed that plant came from. So I think we should perhaps introduce chickweed, but a little bit of background, Linda, on how Weeds Heal came into being. Is that a good time to do that?
Yes. So just to enter people who aren't familiar with Isla's book called Weeds Heal, a lot of this work is based on that book and the guidance that she gives there. So go ahead, you can, tell us about it. Yes.
Yeah. This is, I don't know what your copy looks like, because the Midwest Women, that collective, for which I'm totally grateful. You are so well organised, you people, and it makes this easy for me. But they have printed Weeds Heal, and now it is the only place in the world that you can get it, because I'm not reprinting it. I haven't got that sort of money anymore. So if you have a look at that, the original one, and I mean, when I look at it, it really does give a way of working quite clearly that is different from going to a herbal book or going online to the plethora of websites, some of the information which is highly questionable and references that are highly questionable, in my view. This gives you a way of working that you end up trusting yourself. And in trusting yourself and taking that time and spending that time means that you can pretty much approach any weed or any plant growing in a place where you don't want it to grow with a measure of safety. So when I was first thinking about that I might be of an age where I had enough experience that I could write something, which is, I can't remember what age I was. I think this was 1998. How it came about was I was teaching this process, and my then 3-year diploma students, one of them said to me, look, you should write this down. We want a copy of this. And so that's part of how the book came into being. And at that time, I had the support of a pretty amazing group of women who were not living, like they weren't in their bodies, but they were in a more esoteric sense. And I remember that I used to sit and ponder on them most mornings before I started classes. And I remember one of the clear messages I got was, you can write whatever you like, because I was thinking about writing a book on women's health. You can write that, but you won't be well known for that. This is the book that you will be known for, and this is the book that will stay around. And in a way, they're right. It is timeless. It's not dependent, on research, or it's not dependent on anything other than trusting yourselves. So I'm going to take you through that process with chickweed today, so that you will feel, and I hope some of you have got a chickweed plant with you, but so that you will feel confident about trusting yourself. I'm actually starting a new 5-day course spread over 2 weekends, and it's called Experiencing Biophilia. And the first weekend will have a little bit of this, but a little bit of plant immersion, another course that I run. But it will end up with the participants writing their own plant profile. And I'm really hoping that this will evolve, because that's the next layer of trust in yourself. And they will do this collaboratively, because it's in the collaborative experience that you trust yourself even more. And the second part of that course, but also it's a separate course I run, which is Trees Heal. And Linda's going to come in and experience some of that in January for a couple of weeks. So I'm really looking forward to having her here for that. So I
wanted to
yeah,
just add a couple of things, if you don't mind, because I was introduced to this work by you many years ago and have definitely incorporated it into my work as well. And one of the things I always point out to people is there are books that just spit information at you. And you kind of said this, but I just want to say it a little differently. And then there are books that teach you a skill. And this book, Weeds Heal, it's called, the subtitle is A Working Herbal. I've found it's always really important to look at subtitles of books because they tell you a lot about the book. And I think that tells you a lot about this book, that it is a book that is working. It's a book you can engage with throughout your herbal life. It's not like you go and get the information and that's it. You continually can go back to the process and the skills and get a deeper and deeper understanding over time by engaging over and over again with your senses. And I concur, I see it over and over again with myself and my students, that the confidence that is built by going through these and other exercises that you've taught me, and then ones that I have brought in too, it's incredible how we can learn to trust ourselves in our relationship to nature. It's really powerful. And the three things I always say is, you can learn this just because you want a relationship, you can learn it as a survival skill, or you can learn it to apply herbal medicine. Those are three goals that I have in terms of incorporating this work. And I know you have those as well. So thank you for putting this together in a way that people can easily access it and understand it.
So what you've brought in there, Linda, was a place that I kind of wanted to start with today. I mean, we're well started, but, while I'm into that is, there are many ways we can know a plant, many ways. The problem in herbal medicine is that the ways have become linear. This plant does that. This plant does that because it has this, this, and this constituent, and therefore this, and this action, borne out by this, and this, may be research, which isn't always there. So I'm trying to get away from, and it's not easy, get away from that linear way of thinking to a more holistic way of thinking, where we become more aware of who that plant is and what is that plant about and where is it in its life and how can we tell something from it just looking at where it grows. So I bought two bunches of chickweed in today, little Stellaria media. Now this one, I hope you can see it. This one was found out in the open and it's pretty dry here now for this time in spring. It's a little bit weepy because I picked it about an hour ago. And it's a little bit sort of drying off, browny stalks, right? And there was a lot of it. I went to a different part of the garden and I found this lot, right? Entirely different. This
huge difference.
This feels quite sort of crunchy, dry. This feels moist and wet. They're both seeding, they're both flowering. That one has slightly more red on the stalk. This one has a little bit of red. This was in a shadier part of the garden and one that was more damp. Which one are we going to use? Who would like to answer?
The one in the shade.
Yeah. This feels cool. It feels damp. If I had chopped the one that was out in the open up and made a say a juice out of that, I wouldn't have got much. This one I chopped up quite finely and then squeezed it out, right, to get a really rich, beautiful green juice. So we definitely want this one.
So when you asked that question, a couple of people in the chat, one person said we'll use the second one. Another one, somebody said the happy one. And the other one, somebody else said it looks more lush, the second one. So those were some responses.
It is definitely more lush. And if we were to eat those, so let's just do that tasting thing, because this is critical to how you can trust yourself. I found from another part of the garden, this was just half a stalk, endless. It was climbing up over the dog kennel. And if I was looking at this, what would I taste first? I would ask myself. First of all, I feel it. This is cool. Feels quite cold to touch, as does this one. Then I would think, okay, I'm going to taste one part of it. I'd probably start with a leaf. Now, even when you think that a plant is perfectly safe, I absolutely am totally convinced that in order not to poison yourself, you need only to take half the size of the bed of the attached part of your fingernail, the small one, okay? Half the size of that. Even if you were thinking, oh, yeah, dandelion, chuck it in your mouth, don't. So I would take that amount, top 2 teeth, bottom 2 teeth, tip of your tongue, chew. Don't swallow. Just chew and chew and chew and chew until the plant dissipates or till you get to a point where you have to spit it out. So when I chew this, it's very juicy. If I chewed the other one, it wouldn't be nearly as juicy as this. So we've got a lot of moistening in this plant and a lot of cooling. 2 things that we've learned. Well, 3 things actually. You know where you're going to collect it from, then you've got the cooling, and then you've got the moistening. So the next thing I'd do is say, well, okay, how about that stalk? How do you say it? How do you say stalk, Linda? You've got a different pronunciation. That's the one, yes. I forget. People used to say to me when I was teaching in the States, what do you mean stalk? What do you mean?
I know it sounds like you're saying stork.
Yeah, I know. Well, I am.
To my ear.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Stalk. Right. Okay, so we're going to take a small amount, same thing, into your mouth, top 2 teeth, bottom 2 teeth. My gosh, that is salty to taste. and very juicy. So you're definitely going to use the stems as well as the leaves. Now, the flowers have gone now, but they're tiny little white flowers, and I'll go into, we've got a little one here. Quite the deceiver, actually, because, you know, when you count, looks like 10 petals to that. But can you see that? Yeah.
Hold it up a little higher.
A little bit higher. Is that better?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And closer.
And closer. Is that?
Yeah.
I love having a magnifying glass on hand, because then you can truly see what's happening here. And if I really look closely, I see that even though it looks like 10 petals, there are only 5 petals. And they're white.
You have the buckwheat too. You can see the picture of
Yes.
chickweed. You can see
Oh,
that
yes.
very clearly.
Yes, you can. The photos actually, I think, are some of the finest photos I've ever seen in any book.
Yeah, this
So
is
that
the
was-
chickweed flower.
Yeah. I have to thank Barry O'Brien, who did these photos for me. He was a lecturer at the time at Waikato University in the North Island, and he had an enormous microscope with a camera attachment. He was a photographer, and he did these photos, and I think they're so fine. But my gosh, it took us all night to do those. And then he did a beautiful one of the leaf and the stalk. So
While you're holding that up, one of the things,
Yeah.
and you may talk about this at a different point, but you can really see it in the picture, is that this plant is hairy.
yes, I'm coming to that.
And I think if you want to hold the picture up, just to give people's attention to that, because I think that's really significant, and
Yeah,
you don't see it at first glance.
yeah. There are a couple of lookalikes, and a plant that you'll find growing very close by, if not in between and among the chickweed, is this one. It's called mouse-eared chickweed.
Yeah.
Instead of this, which doesn't feel all that hairy, and I'll come back to the hairs in a minute, this is really hairy. So soft and hairy and quite different from the chickweed. It does have white flowers, but the petals are much larger. And it doesn't do the way in which the seed where am I? How
Well,
that
I can see it. Yes.
doesn't do that, right? So that's just one to watch out for. It doesn't taste particularly of anything. It's not going to kill you if you inadvertently put this into a salad. But it's sort of like gritty, a little bit sandy to the taste.
And then tastes more soapy to me too.
Yeah, although I reckon this is quite soapy.
But
so
the mouse ear tastes.
Oh, right. I just find that real grittiness in it, you know, pretty unpleasant. If you still were not quite sure, these stems have that fine line of hairs that we saw in the photo, but between each segment, the fine line of hairs shifts around the stem. And the rest of the stem is smooth and doesn't have any hairs. And then if you're still not sure, These might be a little bit limp now, but if you kind of crack the stem and pull it just very gently. I can't get it, unfortunately. If it was fresh, there we go. You've got an inner core there. Do you see that? Yeah.
I can see it. Pull it a little closer if you can. There you go, right there. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the mousehead chickweed doesn't have that. Can't do that at all. Okay.
And that's
so
that's a plant that very common confusion. I often have people find mousehair chickweed and of course they're in the same family, so they have the similar looking patterns, but there are those differences which are important.
I think you also find that the mousehead chickweed tends to have that bunch of flowers at the end, right? Whereas the Stellaria media doesn't do that, doesn't have that intense bunch right at the end. You might have 3 or 4 or a few more, but that's all. So fewer flowers at the end of the stem. So just to reiterate there, look for cool and damp. Yours will be just starting to grow now, I imagine. Look for cool and damp, not out in the open. Look for the plant that feels cool to touch and moist in the mouth. Chew well any plant that you put in your mouth, and only that much of the bed, half the bed of your small fingernail. You can even taste a hemlock or belladonna and only taste that amount, and it will be fine. You won't kill yourself. But if you do taste a poisonous plant, you will salivate, or you'll get an irritation in the back of the throat that gets worse as you keep on chewing. Okay? Should we have any questions at this point? Because I'm going to go into another phase here. Yeah?
Let's see if anybody has any questions. Either raise your hand or put them in the chat and I can ask Isla. Okay, Shari has a question. Go ahead, Shari.
Isla, would you repeat the sensation in the back of the throat again?
Yeah. So if a plant is potentially toxic, it doesn't mean it's going to kill you, but if it's potentially toxic, when you chew that top 2 teeth, bottom 2 teeth in the tip of your tongue, and you chew and chew and chew, you'll start getting an irritation in the back of the throat that even after you've spat the plant out, it will still be there and get worse. So that's one sign. The other sign is profuse salivation. And don't get confused about, so if I know I've just told you that you shouldn't do this, but I'm just going to demonstrate it as an example. If I chew all of this, right? Salty. Now, a lot of the books, excuse me, a lot of the books saying spitting chickweed everywhere. A lot of the books say that it's got mucilage. Well, I don't ever sense much mucilage, but when I look at this, it's very soapy. And it definitely has saponins, which trigger. Now, I know that's getting linear, right? But linear is useful now and again. And when I say, as I said before, that I'm trying to get away from the analytical, I'm trying to get away from the analytical being the only thing we do. And I'm trying to incorporate more of the analytical into the holistic.
You know, Tanya said something earlier in the chat that I think is relevant to what you just said. She used the term linear and getting away from linear and transaction. And I think that's that transactional piece where you're trying to accomplish or you're trying to come to some conclusion without the whole.
Yeah. I was thinking about that action across. I mean, holistic could actually be seen as a little bit transactional as well, because it's action across worlds. So,
but it's different than transactional for like,
purpose,
medicinal purpose or a product purpose or something along those lines.
Yeah, it is. That is still part of the plant's wholeness, though. To look at the relationship that we've had over time, that is still part of that whole. So it's not that is really a negative perspective. It's just that it's a tiny part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And who would believe that this little plant that is so overlooked in medicine in today's world, who would believe that this is full of complexity? This is multifaceted and multi-layered. So it's not just multi-layered because of the constituents that it has or the potential for what it does to the selfish human being, us. It's what it does as a source for so much nourishment in both the garden and the other critters that visit the garden, and as well us. So in my garden at the moment, end of winter, mid-spring, where I had the winter greens like beet greens and kale, the chickweed has spread in that garden. And it's almost as though it's kept the earth moist as now these plants are going into seed. So it's got a relationship there. And then it produces these you can see them, small orange seeds, and those small orange seeds are a feast for many beings, birds and so on. And my chickens like it as well. So we've got a gift here. And I think it's the chances of this gift being affected, as long as we've got shade in our gardens, the chances of it disappearing with climate change are quite slim. But we will always have to have some of that moist shade. Where it grows is what it brings. And I want to read a little bit from this book, which I'm making my way through at the moment. People who have been to Rosemary Gladstar's conferences will have, in the past, will have met this man. This is Christopher Headley from the UK.
You're talking about the international.
Yes, the international. Herb Symposium, yeah.
Yes.
And he, his partner Non-Shore died first, and then he died not too long afterwards. He was a Gandalf-looking man and a very gentle presence. Now, he wrote about chickweed. So, being a UK herbalist, he uses a lot more, what shall we say, Galenical type approaches to his philosophy. He does a lot more on hot and cold, moistening, drying, those kinds of things. And he talks, if I can find it, I thought I'd marked it, Isla. Where is it? Chickweed comes under his section on cooling medicines. And he does this thing of degrees of cooling or degrees of moistness or degrees of heat or whatever. And he says that chickweed is second and third degree cold and second and third degree moist. So we didn't need to read that, even though, thank you, Christopher Headley, great teachings, because we already got that from where the best chickweed grows. So it's plant environment. I don't say the plant in its environment. I talk about the plant environment, that the environment is informing, it forms the plant. Do you see? I can't see you, of course. Hope you're all nodding.
Repeat that. Can you
Yeah,
repeat
Linda?
that?
What?
I just wanted to repeat that.
So it's not about the plant in its environment, right? That's very much a human kind of way of looking at this. I talk about the plant environment and how the environment where we find it forms, F-O-R-M, it forms the plant. So this is a little task for you all, is to look at a plant that's in your garden. How is that environment informing that plant? This is good teaching. Okay. So he also goes on to say, just give me a moment. I didn't want to underline this. So cooling medicines are firming, consolidating, slowing, and calming. Think about what it's like to sit next to a stream. It's very calming. They modify excess heat, remove unnatural heat, qualify the heat of food so a weak stomach can digest it, restrain and assuage the heat of the bowels, cool the blood and fevers, stop the pores, bring down swellings, and refresh the spirits. Before I read that, I was really thinking about, and this came actually from a friend of mine who's been really studying dandelion in a big way. And she was talking about the joyfulness that she feels when she's been working with that plant. So I was thinking about chickweed and how it, you know, by looking at that plant and just and holding it, it enlivens the spirit. It enhances the spirit. And actually, I think it's from Culpeper, who talks about chickweed as he might have said something here about it, but he talked about how chickweed, it could have been Juliet de Berkeley Levy's first book, where they talk about chickweed raising the spirits of other beings. So here we have another layer. Yep, we can do the medicine. We're going to talk about that in a minute in a linear way. But we can also look at that more esoteric aspect of this plant. Raising the spirits. I like that. And if we look at the colour of the flower, the first time I ever kind of discovered, this is so old, I doubt if you can get it now, but the first time I ever discovered the colour chakras, and this would have been when I was about 18 or something, 20 or something, and this is really the colour chakra system that I lay out in Weeds Heal. And I must say that I originally was taught that by Susan Weed, that the colour chakra system goes through the colours. Now, do I think this is, absolute exact stuff? No. But I think the colours give us an indicator. Now, chickweed has white. White's not in there. White is considered to have an affinity with the nervous system on its own. We actually have another key in chickweed. Remember when we looked at that, the one where I was able to pull it apart and there was that inner core? I think if we're going to look at the Doctrine of Signatures as another way, key in, not definitive on its own, but one part of it, there's another addition to nervous system function. And then if we relate that more esoterically, esoteric just means hidden, more esoterically to the spirit, raising, energizing, or enlivening the spirit, then we have the connection through from the physical, i.e. in ourselves, to a more spiritual way of looking at it. And by spirit here, I mean our inner beings. So that's another thing about that inner core. It could be very supportive of our inner being, of our inner core. Make sense? Hopefully. Can't see everyone nodding, but hopefully.
It does make sense.
Okay, and look, I would like to leave a little bit of time for questions, but we do need to talk about the medicine because that's probably what a lot of you are interested in. Now, cooling and moistening, refreshing, and it brings the coolness and the moistening to the inside and to the outside. Chickweed used to be a really popular medicine in the past, but that's kind of been lost in this current, what should we say, phytochemical world. And it has a place, a really clear place. So, for example, one day I was teaching and 3 of the students were late. This was many years ago. And one of them had came in and they said, look, we're taking so-and-so to the emergency room. She had thought she might have been stung and her eye was completely swollen and almost closed. One of the other women went out, picked a bunch of chickweed, chewed it up, just chew, and slapped it on. Within 15 minutes, and we did change that poultice, within 15 minutes, that woman could see out of that eye. So not only did it cool and take out the heat, but it also reduced the swelling. Now, we could linearly say, oh, that was probably the saponins, and yes, probably the saponins did have an anti-inflammatory effect, and, you know, because saponins are a little bit steroidal, we could say that. We could also say that it had the capacity to withdraw. And another thing that I read recently, and I can't remember who I read this from, this is dreadful, I used to be able to remember everything, is that you can use, oh, this was Juliet de Barclay-Levy, you can use chickweed as a drawing poultice like we might use, say, slippery elm, if you were into using slippery elm, or any of the other drawing herbs. Juliet uses geranium a lot for that. And the chickweed will heat up, and therefore you need to replace that. So that's there. That's just medicine in your garden, and instant medicine when you need it. But I also use a compress. So I would make a compress out of this for any topical swellings or scaly red eczema, or, you know, any of those types of skin lesions. And what I do is pick a bunch of chickweed. Whoops, it's gone all over my computer. A bunch of chickweed, chop it up finely, and put it through my my grinder, and then squeeze it out. And that can just be used to soak a cloth in and apply directly. Could you drink that? Absolutely. Could you freeze it? Hang on. Could you freeze it? Yes, into ice cubes, so you've got it when chickweed isn't around. Could you add it to like a water-based cream base? Yes, you could do that. If we're going to eat it, and look, people say everywhere, you know, eat as much as you want. My cat's just annoying me. Eat as much as you want. Yeah, look, here. Yeah, see? There we go. I actually find it quite stirring for my stomach. That's the saponin action. And yeah, there's linearity for you. And yeah, I feel like a little bit nauseous if I have too much. So I don't eat loads and loads. Would I make some people make pestos out of it? I don't particularly care for that. I read if you haven't got this book, I think there's a reprint. This is a treasure. Do you have this book, Linda, on your shelf?
I do not. All good things around us, a cookbook and guide to wild plants and herbs.
Yeah, it is amazing. She is amazing. She says, now I know I've read elsewhere, do not cook chickweed. She says chickweed as a vegetable is absolutely fantastic. So there you go. And she just cooks it up 5-10 minutes, chops it up, cooks it up 5-10 minutes, adds a little butter. The butter's probably critical, and some onion and shallot if you want that. She also gives a recipe for a soup. So amazing, amazing, amazing book, full of interest.
So, Isla, with herbs like chickweed that have, I always say they've kind of fallen out of favor in popular herbalism. I often point people to the book Mrs. Greaves, A Modern Herbal.
Yeah.
And she talks about cooking chickweed, and she has a really nice section on chickweed that
Yeah, she does.
that I really like. And I
Yeah.
thought, can I just read this one section? It's short, but I thought it was
Yeah.
really fitting for what we're talking about tonight. She says the chickweed is also an instance of what is termed, quote unquote, sleep of plants. For every night, the leaves approach each other so that their upper surfaces fold over the tender buds of the new shoots, and the uppermost pair, but one of the leaves at the end of the stalk, are furnished with longer leaf stalks than the others, so that they can close upon the terminating pair and protect the tip of the shoot.
Wow. That is
I thought that
incredible.
was so beautiful.
How protective is that? Okay, if we want to translate that, I mean, we know that it has vitamins A, B, C, and D, and then a whole host of minerals and zinc, and we need zinc for hormones, right? Wow, that is fantastic. God, I have to go and read that again. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, and then the next paragraph, she talks about cooking it like spinach.
Yeah. So I think the cooking also would lessen that irritating sapogenic effect that I get in the stomach. So I am going to try it because I never have. I always thought people said don't cook it. So yeah, fantastic.
So there was a
Okay.
question.
Yeah,
Kate was
I'm
asking how
open for
often.
questions.
Kate was asking how often should you change the chewed poultice for swelling?
Okay, as soon as it's warm, when it heats up, change it. Yeah.
So probably pretty frequently, especially
Yeah,
initially.
usually 15 minutes. You'll see some change. Yeah. I think with the woman with the eye, there's another story. I have to tell you this one. A patient of mine many years ago, she was a young woman, and she had the most awful, hot, dry, scaly skin condition. Now, the family was meticulous. They had been through everything, and they'd changed her diet. They'd, done so much. Anyway, I've told this story before, she wanted to go to the school ball the next week in a boob tube dress, right? No straps. Back was going to be bare. We had, I think, was 3 or 4 weeks before that ball was on. So she came, and to my garden, I had an incredible amount of chickweed at that time. And of course, took her off soap, and she'd already gone through that whole process. And they even had a filter on their showers so that there was no chlorine in the water. And, they'd really been meticulous. So she came, she made her own chickweed juice and would take away. She'd come every 3 or 4 days and put ice cubes. And then she would put this, after the shower, she'd put this over her skin. She went to the ball. Now, that's a pretty cool thing for that beautiful little plant that we have, that we all have. Okay. Any questions before we finish up here today? I think we finished around 2:15. Is that right, Linda?
What's that?
I think we finish around 2:15. Is that right?
Yes, and we're going to do our giveaways and things, but let's see if anyone has any last questions or anything that you want to say to anybody about the process here.
Okay. Shari just asked me if I wanted to say a word about the Aging Well workshop that's coming up in your own hands. Well,
Yes.
because I'm of an age, I'm interested in aging well, right? So what I've done here is I've looked at a whole range of different theories on aging, which I'll be talking about. But more importantly, I'm talking about how we can take care of our bones, which is what a lot of people post-menopause really start looking at. Our blood, which you probably know more about, but with the bone one, I've looked at every single thing that bones require, very linear. And looking at some of the interesting research from Kerry Bone on the truly important value of our plants and how, as a supplement, if we were to think along those lines, our bodies are they're more aligned with the plant equivalents of supplements, i.e. the vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals. And they are what make up our cells excited, right? Apart from or compared to the over-the-counter supplements that so many people take these days, and that how really they're a waste of time. And then he goes into quite a complex pathway called the NRF2 pathway that I'm going to talk about. And then I'm going to talk about the importance of foot baths and facials and all those things to take care of ourselves. So that's in February. I think, Shari, you said February the 1st.
Yes,
yeah.
That's part of our Women's Winter Wellness Series.
Yeah.
And you can sign up for the whole series, or you can sign up for just Isla's workshop. And we'll be sending you some discount codes to sign up for that if you would like to join us. It's going to be an amazing series. And that workshop, of course, is going to be a nice deep dive. You can see there's going to be a lot of information packed in a short time. Which Isla Kelsey was saying, thank you so much for teaching us today. I learned so much in a short time. So there was a lot learned. And there was one last question. So I thought maybe we'd do that and then we'd turn it over to Shari. Kate says, when you're chopping and blending, are you adding anything or just its own juices from the blending?
Only its own juices. If you feel as though it's a little bit drier, then you could put, for a big handful of chickweed, about a dessert spoon of water. But today I just did its own juices.
And how beautiful that color is, just stunning.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
It really is.
Amazing.
Well, Isla, we could listen to you all day long. And so appreciate your wisdom. When you collect wisdom for as many years as you have, there is a lot to learn in such a short time. And I really want to honor you as an esteemed elder, dedicating your life to this work and really being able to share it with us so then we can bring it into our lives and be able to interact with the plants in a really deeply meaningful way. So thank you so much
Pleasure,
for
Linda.
that.
Pleasure. Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Shari, who's going to do our giveaways and just share some last things. And then hopefully we'll see you all in February.
Well, thank you. And
just one thing, Shari, do you need to catch up with me after you've finished this little bit? Should I stay on for a little while?
If you can, that would be great.
Okay. I'll just go off and get a drink and check on my dog. Yeah.
Great.
All right. Well, I'm really intrigued with the concept of how the environment informs the plant. And I know I want to sit with that a little bit more. It's a little mind bending there to wrap my head around. So thank you, Linda and Isla, for the conversation. I really enjoyed it. I hope everyone else did. Thanks everybody for attending, for your time and attention and participation. And so we're going to give away, we've been talking about that in our own hands. So I'm going to go ahead and give away one of those. So I'm going to go with Wendy Negron. Wendy, if you could send your name to herbwomen@gmail.com. That is for the In Our Own Hands series. And then, oh my gosh, we get to give away Isla's book. Let's see. Yeah. I'm going to go with Deborah Morrison. Deborah Morrison, you get a copy of Isla's book, Weeds Heal, a Working Herbal. So, all right, everybody, go ahead and send your name, Deborah, to herbwomen@gmail.com. Just a reminder, we'll be sending out an email with the Zoom link for a replay. We'll be putting a list of the books and things that were talked about tonight and a follow-up email. And do look for those discount codes so you can take advantage of signing up for In Our Own Hands. Let's see, we've got newsletters coming out with all kinds of information, so check with those and about future conversations. You can go ahead and watch archived conversations on herbwomenclassroom.com as well. Well, that's it for tonight, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and good night.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, Linda, I'm still here.
All right, lots of appreciation. Lots to Isla. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Linda and Isla. Good night, everybody.
Bye, Tony.
Good night, good night. Let's see here. All right, good night, everybody.